the relationship between India and United States is entirely a new phase, one defined not by unquestioned alignment but by strategic negotiation. The reality is far more nuanced. The two countries are partners, but they are also engaged in ongoing effort to redefine the balance of power within that partnership. What has emerged is not traditional geopolitical rivalry, but a silent contest involving trade, technology, influence, and strategic autonomy. It seeks partnership without dependency, cooperation without subordination, and engagement without surrendering autonomy. So, this strategic independence also explains India's heightened focus on its immediate neighborhood. Namaskar. I welcome you all to the digital media of Uday India, and in India Things, I want to tell you that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was outside India, most people saw a handshake at the G7 summit. Cameras captured the smiles, the photographs, and the brief exchange between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump. To the casual observer, it appeared to be just another diplomatic movement, a routine interaction between two world leaders. Yet, the real story was not the handshake itself. The real story was what had happened during the 16 months leading up to it. For nearly a year and a half, Modi and Trump had not met face to face. In a world where global leaders interact frequently through summits, bilateral visits, and international forums, such a gap was also notable. When they finally stood a few feet apart again at the G7, the symbolism extended far beyond the optics. Beneath the smiles and cordiality was a subtle but unmistakable message. The relationship between India and the United States is entirely a new phase, one defined not by unquestioned alignment but by strategic negotiation. For years, the dominant narrative has been that India and America are steadily moving closer together. While this remains true in many respects, the reality is far more nuanced. The two countries are partners, but they are also engaged in ongoing effort to redefine the balance of power within that partnership. What has emerged is not traditional geopolitical rivalry, but a silent contest involving trade, technology, influence, and strategic autonomy. This is not a Cold War fought with tanks or missiles. It is a Cold War fought with tariffs, supply chains, diplomatic leverage, and competing visions of the future. The roots of this dynamic can be traced back to the following: Operation Sindoor. Many policymakers in the Washington expected India to become more flexible on range of issues, including trade negotiations, regional security arrangements, strategic alignment, and its relationship with Russia. Instead, New Delhi chose a different path. India continued purchasing Russian oil despite Western pressure. It remained active in BRICS while simultaneously deepening its engagement with Quad. So rather than aligning itself fully with any single bloc, India pursued its own interests. This marked a significant shift and sent a clear signal that New Delhi intended to preserve strategic independence regardless of external expectations. This approach posed a challenge to Trump's preferred negotiating style. The American president has long been known for applying pressure first and seeking concessions later. That strategy has often worked in business with allies and with smaller nations dependent on American influence. India, however, responded differently. When tariff pressure increased, New Delhi did not rush to compromise. When trade negotiations slowed, it did not panic. Instead, India continued discussion at its own pace, demonstrating an unusual level of patience and confidence. The message was simple: India was willing to wait. That patience is perhaps best illustrated by the trade agreement that still remains elusive. If America possessed overwhelming leverage, the deal would already be complete. Likewise, if India were desperately dependent on American support, negotiations would have concluded long ago. So, the fact that discussions continue reflect a deeper reality. India increasingly believes that time is working in its favor, and every major economic power wants access to the Indian market. The United States seeks commercial opportunities. Europe views India as a critical growth destination, and Japan sees it as an indispensable strategic and economic partner, and multinational corporations regard it as one of the world's most promising consumer markets. So, unlike previous decades, India is now negotiating from a position of confidence rather than urgency. Another revealing aspect of the G7 summit was the presence of French President Emmanuel Macron in many of the most widely circulated images involving Modi and Trump. Far from being incidental, this symbolized India's expanding strategic options. France has quietly emerged as one of India's most important partners through defense cooperation, Rafale fighter jet acquisition, submarine projects, space collaboration, technology initiatives, and Indo-Pacific engagement. The broader message is that India is no longer dependent on any single power center. It has cultivated multiple partnerships, giving it greater flexibility and leverage in international negotiations. At the same time, the strategic importance of India to the United States has grown significantly. Much attention is devoted to what India gains from its relationship with America, but far less is said about what America gains from India. As Washington confronts an increasingly assertive China, restructures global supply chains, and navigates an Indo-Pacific region that has become the center of global competition, strong partners in Asia are essential. Yet, India has consistently made it clear that it will not become another treaty-bound ally. It seeks partnership without dependency, cooperation without subordination, and engagement without surrendering autonomy. So, this strategic independence also explains India's heightened focus on its immediate neighborhood. Bangladesh, for example, is often overlooked in broader discussions, but occupies a central place in India's security calculations. Its geographical position, proximity to Siliguri corridor, influence on India's northeast, and role in regional stability make it a better national security rather than merely foreign policy. Similarly, increased attention towards eastern India and western Bengal reflects the growing geopolitical significance of the Bay of Bengal, regional connectivity corridors, maritime trade routes, and broader Indo-Pacific competition. So, the debate surrounding foreign influence has also become increasingly important. Supporters of stricter enforcement of foreign funding regulations argue that the issue is not simply about money but about influence. They contend that funding can sharp narratives, generate political pressure, and create strategic leverage. Critics may disagree with this interpretation, but both sides recognize that the larger contest revolves around sovereignty and influence in an era of global interconnectedness. Perhaps the clearest illustration of India's approach is its participation in multiple and sometimes overlapping geopolitical frameworks. India is a member of the Quad, but not NATO. It works closely with the United States, Japan, Australia, Europe, Russia, and BRICS nations simultaneously. This refusal to permanently join any single camp reflects a deliberate grand strategy. So, India seeks to maximize partnerships while preserving decision-making freedom. The significance of the Modi-Trump handshake therefore extends far beyond a diplomatic photo opportunity. It symbolized the emergence of a different India, an India that is one of the world's largest economies, a nuclear and space power, a digital leader, a growing defense exporter, and one of the largest consumer markets on the earth. The global conversation is no more longer about whether India can become a major power. It is about how powerful India will become. In the end, the real Cold War of the 21st century may not be fought through military confrontation, it may be fought through trade agreements, technology competition, supply chain, foreign funding networks, information ecosystem, and regional influence. Washington seeks greater alignment. New Delhi seeks greater autonomy. That is underlying tension shaping one of the world's most important relationships. The handshake at the G7 mattered because it revealed this new reality. The India of the past often sought a seat at the table. The India of today is increasingly becoming a power that others must negotiate with. And that changes everything. That's all for today. Stay tuned with Uday India and subscribe to Uday India. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.